I can still hear it sometimes in the quiet moments, that insistent, disembodied call from the heavens. It was not a message of peace, not then. It was a cold, hard reminder that the world had irrevocably changed, and with it, my own small corner of it. In that precise instant, the future of our nation, and indeed the very fabric of human connection, pivoted on a silent, terrifying question: could we catch up? Welcome. A story not just of wires and machines, but of the audacious, often eccentric, minds who dared to build the very foundation of our digital world from the crucible of Cold War fear. It is a journey into the human spirit that forged the internet, long before it had a name. My name is Eleanor Vance. Back in 1962, fresh out of MIT with a degree that still felt new, I found myself in a room filled with machines that hummed like sleeping giants. Not quite the bustling newsroom or the hallowed halls of academia I had once imagined, but it held a different kind of magic. I was a junior programmer at Bolt Beranek and Newman, BBN, a place where theoretical physics met practical engineering. Most of my peers were men, older, often with pipe smoke curling around their brows as they wrestled with algorithms on chalkboards. I remember one evening, huddled over a teletype, the heavy clatter of its keys, a familiar comfort. I was debugging a complex routine, trying to optimize data flow for a new time-sharing system. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and stale coffee. My fingers flew across the keyboard, a strange dance between logic and intuition. Each line of code was a tiny step forward, a whispered conversation with a machine that, for most people, was still a mysterious black box. I was not interested in just making computers calculate faster. I saw a glimmer, a potential for them to talk, to share, to connect people across distances, not just within the cold, isolated confines of a single room. It was an abstract dream then, a flicker of an idea that felt almost heretical in a world dominated by batch processing and punched cards. Little did I know, this obscure, government-funded agency, born from the fear of Sputnik, was about to provide the canvas for that dream. The 1950s had ended, but the shadow of Sputnik lengthened over the new decade. The launch of that single, unassuming satellite had done more than just put a beeping ball in orbit. It had exposed a chasm in American technological confidence. The Soviets seemed ahead, and the thought of them having superior long-range missiles able to reach our cities was a chilling reality that permeated every level of society. President Eisenhower, a man of quiet resolve and immense strategic foresight, understood that the traditional military structures designed for conventional warfare were not agile enough to win this new kind of race, a race of minds, of innovation. We needed something different, something willing to take immense risks for immense rewards. And so, in February of 1958, the Advanced Research Projects Agency, ARPA, was born. Its initial mandate was broad, almost desperate, to prevent future technological surprise. They were tasked with accelerating American innovation, particularly in space and ballistic missiles, to counter the perceived Soviet lead. But a funny thing happened on the way to the space race. Just months after ARPA's birth, NASA was established, taking over the space and rocketry programs. This might have been the end of ARPA, a brief, forgotten footnote in history. Instead, it was its true beginning. Stripped of the space program, ARPA was forced to redefine itself. It pivoted, under the guidance of visionary science advisors, to something unprecedented, a focus on high-risk, high-gain fundamental research. It was a blank check for brilliant minds, an invitation to explore the speculative, the long-term, the truly transformative. And that is when the whispers started, even in places like BBN, about this agency that was not afraid to bet on the impossible. The name J.C.R. Licklider was not exactly a household one. He was not a general or a rocketry engineer. He was a psychologist from MIT, and in October of 1962, he stepped into the directorship of ARPA's Information Processing Techniques Office, or IPTO. This was the office that would, unknowingly, lay the very groundwork for the internet. Licklider was different, Most people saw computers as glorified calculators, massive machines that crunched numbers in isolated batches. But Licklider, he saw partners. I first encountered his ideas through a circulating paper, a mimeographed copy tucked between circuit diagrams. His 1960 paper, Man-Computer Symbiosis, resonated deeply with that nascent dream of mine. He was not talking about machines replacing humans, but about an intimate, collaborative relationship where human intuition and creativity would fuse with a computer's speed and precision. He described a future where a person would set up a problem, run a 10-second trial solution, get the results, revise the problem, run another 10-second trial solution. It sounded like science fiction, an almost spiritual connection to the cold logic of machines. But it was his intergalactic computer network that truly sparked something within me. A network, he wrote, that would allow everyone on it to interact with information and with each other. Imagine researchers in California sharing data with colleagues in Massachusetts, not through mailed punch cards, but instantaneously. It was a radical, audacious concept in a world where computers were still massive, isolated behemoths. His ideas faced immense resistance, often dismissed as the ramblings of a visionary too far ahead of his time. Yet within ARPA, he found a unique sanctuary, a place where such mad ideas were not only tolerated, but actively encouraged. Licklider did not just have ideas. He had a knack for attracting others who shared his particular brand of intellectual audacity. He assembled what became known as Licklider's Gang, a cadre of brilliant, often unconventional minds. Ivan Sutherland, who pioneered interactive computer graphics with his sketchpad system, Douglas Engelbart, whose vision of augmenting human intellect would lead to the mouse and hypertext, and later Robert Taylor, who would inherit Licklider's mantle and transform the abstract dream into a concrete plan. They were a motley crew, these ARPA-funded researchers. Universities like MIT, Stanford, UCLA, and my own BBN became vibrant crucibles of innovation. The atmosphere was not just competitive, it was fiercely collaborative. Ideas were exchanged, debated, and built upon at conferences, over phone calls, and through early, clunky messaging systems. I remember seeing images of Engelbart's work, that almost magical display of graphics, text, and interactive elements. In 1968, he would unveil his mother of all demos, showcasing the mouse, hypertext, and video conferencing to a stunned audience. We, the younger generation of programmers, saw these glimpses of the future and felt an almost electric thrill. ARPA's unique model was key. It provided substantial funding, but more importantly, it fostered an environment of intellectual freedom. Program managers, often researchers themselves, were given remarkable autonomy. They understood that breakthroughs often came from unconventional thinking, from allowing smart people to explore seemingly wild ideas. This was where the theoretical groundwork for time-sharing, interactive graphics, and the very concept of interconnected computing was painstakingly laid. We were moving beyond the simple notion of computers as isolated tools. We were beginning to see them as potential bridges, building blocks for something far grander. The dream of a network was one thing, building it was another entirely. The existing telecommunications infrastructure, dominated by giants like AT&T, operated on a system called circuit switching. Imagine a phone call. When you dial, a dedicated, continuous electrical circuit is established between your phone and the person you are calling. That circuit is yours and yours alone for the duration of the call. It works beautifully for voice, but for computer data, which often comes in bursts, it is incredibly inefficient. You would be paying for an open, idle line most of the time. But in the quiet corners of research labs, seemingly disparate minds were converging on a revolutionary idea: packet switching. Paul Barron at the RAND Corporation, driven by concerns about maintaining military communications during a nuclear attack, proposed breaking data into small, self-contained packets, each carrying its destination address. These packets could then travel independently across a distributed network, finding their own paths even if parts of the network were destroyed. Around the same time, across the Atlantic, Donald Davies at the National Physical Laboratory, NPL, in the United Kingdom, independently arrived at similar conclusions, even coining the term packet switching. My colleagues at BBN and I, we grappled with these concepts. It was counterintuitive to everything we knew about communication. The established telecommunication companies scoffed. "It will not work," they said. "It is too complex, too unreliable." Yet the intellectual elegance of it was undeniable. The idea was to create a network that was inherently robust, decentralized, and efficient. This intellectual courage, this willingness to pursue a completely unproven concept that challenged the deeply ingrained status quo, was precisely what ARPA excelled at. They saw the potential even when the rest of the world saw only theoretical folly. This was the conceptual leap that would make the intergalactic computer network possible. The theoretical pieces were in place. The visionary minds had laid the groundwork. Now, it was time to build. Robert Taylor, Licklider's successor as IPTO director, became the driving force behind the physical network. He understood that connecting the various ARPA-funded research centers was not just about sharing expensive computer time. It was about fostering collaboration, about creating a shared intellectual space. He secured the funding, a surprisingly modest sum, for what would become the ARPANET. Lawrence Roberts was brought in from MIT Lincoln Laboratory to lead the project. Roberts, with his keen engineering mind, developed the specific architecture. The key innovation was not connecting the mainframe computers directly, but creating a subnetwork of smaller, specialized computers that would handle the packet switching. These were the interface message processors, or IMPs. And that is where BBN, my home, came in. We were awarded the contract to build these IMPs. It was a whirlwind. The BBN team, led by Frank Hart, worked with a furious intensity. We were designing, wiring, testing these bulky, refrigerator-sized machines, knowing that each one was a crucial node in this untested experiment. The excitement was infectious, but so was the apprehension. What if it did not work? What if all these brilliant ideas collapsed under the weight of physical reality? Then came 1969. The first 4 nodes of the ARPANET were selected. First, UCLA, home to Leonard Kleinrock's Network Measurement Center. Then, SRI International, where Doug Engelbart had performed his mother of all demos. Next, the University of California, Santa Barbara, followed by the University of Utah. Each represented a frontier of computing research. And then, the day. October 29, 1969. I was not at UCLA, but I remember the phones ringing off the hook, the tension in the BBN office. Charlie Klein, a student at UCLA, was attempting to send the first message to Bill Duvall at SRI. The plan was simple: Login. A single word meant to establish a remote connection. The message was sent. LO. And then it crashed. Just LO. Not exactly the grand pronouncement history books would remember, but they persisted, they debugged. And a few hours later, the full login was transmitted. It was a humble, inelegant beginning, punctuated by failure, then stubborn success. But for us, for the handful of people who understood what that meant, it was nothing short of a miracle. The network had come to life. Once those initial connections were stable, the network began to hum with activity. The initial applications were utilitarian, remote login, allowing researchers to use powerful computers at other sites, and file transfer, moving large data sets across the nascent web of connections. But then, something truly transformative happened, something none of us had fully anticipated. In 1971, Ray Tomlinson, working at BBN, developed a simple program that allowed messages to be sent between users on different host computers connected to the ARPANET. He used the CMD symbol to separate the username from the hostname, email. That was it, the killer app. Suddenly, people were not just sharing computer resources, they were sharing thoughts, jokes, ideas. The network was not just a tool for research, it was becoming a medium for human connection. I remember the first time I sent an email to a colleague at SRI. It felt instantaneous, almost magical. A simple message, yet it bypassed all the conventional forms of communication. No paper, no stamps, no waiting for days. It was a direct, personal channel. This unexpected burst of human communication rapidly became the network's most popular feature, far outstripping resource sharing. Yet, skepticism from the outside world persisted. To the uninitiated, it still seemed like an expensive toy for academics and the military. There were internal debates, too. Was this network primarily for defense, a robust communication system in case of war? Or was it a tool for open academic collaboration, a free exchange of information? These discussions shaped the network's future, navigating the delicate balance between its military origins and its burgeoning civilian potential. But the passionate user community, the network working group that met frequently, often late into the night, was growing. We were pioneers, building the rules as we went, sharing our findings through informal request for comments or RFCs, documents that would become the very foundation of Internet standards. We were proving its worth, one message, one file transfer, one collaborative project at a time. The ARPANET, revolutionary as it was still a closed system, a single network. But the world was not standing still. Other networks were emerging, each with its own protocols, its own ways of communicating. How could these disparate networks talk to each other? How could the ARPANET connect with satellite networks or nascent radio networks? This challenge led to one of the most critical breakthroughs, the development of TCP/IP, the Transmission Control Protocol Internet Protocol. Vince Cerf and Bob Kahn, brilliant minds working with ARPA funding, spearheaded this effort. Their genius lay in creating a language that would allow any network, regardless of its underlying technology, to communicate seamlessly with any other. It was the invention of the Internet, a network of networks. I remember the discussions, the long hours spent debating the technical nuances of these new protocols. It was a massive undertaking, a grand abstraction that would underpin the entire digital world. And then, the pivotal decision, the ARPANET, initially a military academic experiment, would transition to TCP/IP and eventually be opened up to non-military users, then decommissioned entirely in 1990. On January 1, 1983, the switch was officially flipped. The ARPANET adopted TCP/IP, marking what many consider the true birth of the modern Internet. Watching our creation grow, watching it begin to spread beyond its original purpose, brought a mix of emotions, pride certainly, but also a sense of awe and a hint of trepidation. We had built a tool, a communication system, but its ultimate destiny was now out of our hands. It was like watching a child grow up and leave home, knowing they would go on to do things you could never have imagined. The Internet, our Internet, was truly becoming a global phenomenon, connecting not just researchers, but eventually, everyone. The ARPANET, our beloved project, was eventually decommissioned. It had served its purpose, sowing the seeds for something far greater. But the agency that birthed it, ARPA, now largely known as DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Agency, did not disappear. Far from it. Its impact, the model it established, continues to resonate in every corner of our digital lives. ARPA's tolerance for failure was its secret weapon. Unlike traditional funding agencies, they understood that truly groundbreaking research rarely follows a straight path. They embraced dead ends, learned from missteps, and continued to pour resources into high-risk, high-reward ideas that commercial companies or even other government entities would not touch. This emphasis on daring innovation, on interdisciplinary collaboration, became a blueprint for technological advancement worldwide. Think about it. Beyond the Internet, ARPA funded foundational work in artificial intelligence, the very first concepts of expert systems, natural language processing, and robotics that underpin today's AI boom. They invested in supercomputing, making complex simulations possible. They were instrumental in the development of stealth technology, revolutionizing military aviation. Even precursors to GPS, advanced materials, and modern cybersecurity research can trace their lineage back to ARPA's early patronage. Every time you stream a video, every email you send, every time you connect with someone across the globe, you are tapping into a legacy that began in those quiet labs, fueled by Cold War urgency but driven by human curiosity. It is a testament to the fact that government-funded research, when executed with vision and daring, can yield unforeseen and truly transformative benefits for all of humanity. It is a model that proves that sometimes the biggest leaps come from the bravest bets. Looking back, it is easy to see the internet as an inevitable outcome, a straight line from Sputnik to your smartphone, but it was not. It was the culmination of decades of daring ideas, countless failures, frustrated evenings, and the unwavering belief of a few remarkable individuals. People like Licklider, who dared to dream of humans and computers working as one. Robert Taylor, who fought to make the network a reality. The engineers at BBN, like myself, who poured our lives into building the IMPs. The graduate students who stayed up late defining the very protocols that govern our digital world. We were driven by a shared vision, by the intellectual thrill of solving seemingly impossible problems. We were a network of people, building a network of machines. We argued, we celebrated, we sometimes despaired. But we never stopped believing in the profound power of connection. We were, in a way, ordinary people doing extraordinary things, pushing the boundaries of what was conceivable. History may judge the motivations, Cold War fear, military advantage. But the unintended, glorious consequence was a world interconnected, where information flows freely, where distance is diminished, and where human potential, amplified by technology, is truly boundless. The internet, in its sprawling, chaotic glory, stands as a monument to human ingenuity, collaboration, and the remarkable power of giving smart people the freedom to fail, to learn, and to build the future. If you have made it this far into the journey, thank you. If you are enjoying this kind of storytelling, I would be honored if you subscribed. It helps bring forgotten voices like mine back to life. And the next time you connect, remember us. Remember the audacious dreamers who built the invisible threads holding our world together. If this journey moved you, if it sparked a new understanding of the digital world around you, I would love for you to like, share, and comment with your thoughts below. What other hidden historical figures or agencies do you think deserve a spotlight? And do not forget to subscribe and turn on the bell so you are here for the next one. Until then, keep connecting.